All right, welcome everybody to this regular city council meeting. With it being a regular city council meeting, I remind you that all items of decorum as per chapter 23 city council article 1 are in force for attendees as well as for council members. Let me refresh, since we have some new council members, that council members may not interrupt another member while speaking or refuse to obey the orders of the council or its presiding officer. The presiding officer will ensure the decorum of the meeting is maintained. Also, there may be no demeaning of any individual or group. Comments made during the council. This is the warning. Any violations from this will be pointed out. Yes. All right, with that being said, the meeting is called to order. Let's have our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Honoring the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please be seated. All right, City Secretary, we have a quorum this evening with all council members present and in person. Notice of meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. Notice of this meeting was posted by Friday, August 30th.
Great. Are there any public comments?
There are not.
Public hearings. We have several public hearings. Let me remind those in attendance that you'll have 3 minutes to respond to a public hearing. The council cannot respond. They can't answer any questions. All they do is listen. When you come to the podium, be sure to say your name and word. And City Secretary will be beginning public hearings at 5:32 p.m. Public hearing A. To obtain citizen views and comments regarding replat 2024-09-01. A replat application to allow the applicant Sarah Bowe to remove internal lot lines and reflect updated ownership of a city alley that was purchased by the applicant. The subject property is located at the corner of North 4th and East E. It is legally described as lot 6, 7, and 8, along with a 15.67-foot wide strip of vacated alley lying adjacent to and east of said lots. All out of block 3, original town site of Alpine, as shown in subdivision plat on file, volume 2, page 97, deed records of Brewster County, Texas. The property ID of the subject property is 11805. The current zoning classification of the property is C2 Business District. If the replat is approved, the zoning classification will remain C2 Business District. Is there anybody here to speak on this? Okay, seeing none. Public hearing B. To obtain citizen views and comments regarding special use permit 2024-08-01, a special use permit allowing the applicant Michelle Minto to obtain a retail dealer's on-premise license permit through the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission for alcohol sales and the subject property Block Burger. The subject property is located 603 East Avenue E. The property owner of record is Sandra Baeza. The parcel ID of the subject property is 10628. Is there anybody here to speak on this public hearing? State your name and word. And you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Michelle Minto. I'm not sure what one.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted
We're
to,
fine.
I'm Ward 5. Thank you. I just wanted to say that the address is 601 East Avenue E and not 603. There was some confusion. With one or the other. Something.
Thank you. All right, public hearing C, to obtain citizen views and comments regarding the first reading of ordinance 2024-09-04, an ordinance making appropriations for the support of the city of Alpine, Texas for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025. Appropriating money to a sinking fund to pay interest and principal on the city's indebtedness. Adopting the annual budget of the city of Alpine, Texas for the fiscal year 2024-2025. Is anyone here to speak on behalf of this? Seeing none, moving on to public presentations. Presentations and recognitions, there are none.
Mayor, will you state the time?
Yes, thank you. Time is 5:35 p.m. Proclamations. We have a proclamation tonight for Building and Code Staff Appreciation Day, which is September 1st, 2024. Moving on to community interest items. Remember that community interest items as per chapter 23 of the Code of Ordinance relate to employee or community recognitions, requesting specific factual information, recitation of existing policy staff, placement of items on the agenda. City Secretary, give each of us 1 minute, please, so please set a minute on the clock for me. I wanted to point out that next Tuesday, September 10th at 5:30 p.m., we have a special city council meeting to go over the budget, tax rate. That's it. Those are the big things. All right. And then the Bluegrass Festival is coming to Alpine again this year, and that will be October 4th and October 5th. City Secretary, please give the city manager 1 minute on the time.
Well, you've already announced one of mine, really important, September 10th, budget hearing to approve and first reading of the ordinance for the tax rate. September 17th will be the approval of the tax rate, keeping us on schedule. Also, September 24th and 25th, the Alpine Police Department is having a blood drive. It will be from 9 to 1 on the 24th and 11 to 3 on the 25th. And we do have nice big posters that will go out and available for everyone to see.
All right, City Secretary, each council member gets 1 minute, starting with Rick Stevens, Ward 5.
Okay, in my role sitting, representing city council, commissioners court, the highlights of the commissioners court meeting, last week, were as follows. One, they did approve the, 2020 tax rate, they approved their 2025 budget. The tax rate is slightly down from last year, although they'll increase the amount of revenue. They approved the proposed holidays for 2025 to 16 days.
Thank you. City Secretary, 1 minute for Councilmember Escobedo. 1 minute for Councilmember Nance. 1 minute for Councilmember Martinez. No. 1 minute for Councilmember Snow.
Mayor, just wanted to remind everyone that the last day to register to vote is October 7th. As some of you maybe have recently heard in the news, there's been a large swath of folks that have been taken off the voter rolls, whether they haven't voted in the last election or moved or something like that. Great website, Texas League of Women Voters, vote411.org. You can find the link to check if you are registered. Make sure you're not suspended again by October 7th. So make sure that your voice is heard. Thank you.
All right, changes to posted agenda. Are there any items to be continued or withdrawn? Okay, any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
I'd like to move on to B.
Item B, consent agenda. Okay, any action items to be added to the consent agenda? Any time sensitive items? Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, City Secretary, we are removing item B from the consent agenda. And I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's consent agenda contains one item, approval of August 20th, 2024 regular.
Okay, I need a motion. Okay, and let's vote. All in favor of item A of the consent agenda. Okay. City Secretary, item A, approval of August 24 regular city council meeting minutes has been approved unanimously by city council. All right, item B, council.
So I'll just pull that, reading that, 12 out of 12 releases are appreciated from CPI, 28. I'm wondering why we learned this.
So in 2014, the city went to a new paper lease. And those who were on the old paper lease had the option to renew at the new lease language and chose not to. So moving forward, as hangers are bought and sold, we're updating them, to the new lease, but we still have those on the old lease.
The new lease is, yeah, the old lease is the one we just
The
updated.
1 cent per year.
Gotcha. And then, my question. We went through a lot of discussion and everything else on that hangar lease. And is there any, would it make sense to move forward with the CPI index for all of them?
That's the game plan. But I mean, the old lease is still valid, 30-year lease. So some of them are just renewed at 2013, so they won't switch over until.
I was gonna say, we had a lot of discussions on that. And well, how much that was gonna be my next question. On the, what is the revenue bump for that one? Wait, 1.01 cent or whatever, raise?
It's
Or like,
off the top of my head, last year it was about 2,000.
That drops for all.
For those who are on the 1 cent increase, the CPI fluctuates. So some years they may get hit with a higher increase, other years they get hit with a. They've been able to maintain a lower. Within
So CPI has actually been cheaper than the, yeah.
the year,
It's still
except for during the pandemic.
That's all.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve item B of the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve item B.
I need a second. Let's vote. City Secretary, item B of the consent agenda to approve the hangar lease rental rate increase of 0.01 per square foot has been approved unanimously by council. All right, moving on to reports and presentations. Okay, we have one report tonight, 6 minutes on the clock, City Secretary, and this is for our city manager.
I'm actually gonna keep it fairly short since all the information is provided in advance to the council and is available online for the public. I'm just gonna hit the top ones, as outlined in the executive summary. Obviously, May and June are a little past, but July will be the most current, and we just finished August. So when we look at revenue, the largest increases are in our interest counts across the board in all of our funds. Water, wastewater is on schedule with the budgeted amount for revenue. The airport is on schedule with the budgeted amounts for revenue. We're still pending the ramp reimbursement, which is a 90/10, so that will help the airport, especially as it comes to close for the fiscal year. Tourism is lower than anticipated. I had anticipated July. That's when we get those quarterly payments in. Summers are typically our slightly busier month. But we didn't see that increase like we thought we would. So that one is currently being monitored. But we had anticipated using the reserves, the fund balance, if we did not bring in the totals collected. The gas is lower than anticipated, and I had discussed this, mentioned it to council before. We are just seeing warmer months. It's unfortunate. I know that the residents kind of get heart palpitations when they get their gas bill for a couple months out of the year. But the winter months are what significantly carry the gas department, and they are in a positive state when it comes to their maintenance. So that's why we requested that slight increase, because we don't see the gas bills. When we look at the expenses, as discussed on many occasions with you guys, and I know Councilor Stevens brings it up, we do underrun. And we underrun for several reasons. One, we don't have access to the resources, and two, we don't have the staff to complete some of the projects. So the general fund, what you don't see as of July was those larger construction projects, i.e. like the public works fleet facility. And they also just went heavy into their paving. So most of those expenses hit August, September. Which is what I mentioned with the seal coating. The wastewater treatment plant, we budgeted it for the 1.4 million for the improvements, and we just got through the RFP, which is later on in the agenda. The taxiway completion, that wasn't an original budgeted expense, but with the 90/10 split with the ramp, we went ahead and took advantage of that. The tourism, I put a halt on the remodeling based off of our CIP and wanted a full discussion with the council for next fiscal year and the direction we want to take with that building and that space. And then, of course, one of the big projects that the gas department had was the smart meter. We did not submit an RFP, which is a request for proposal, to get input with that one, so that one's on hold. Overall, all of the departments are doing well. The 17th, you'll see a budget amendment being proposed to council. The budget amendment will reflect where we have to move some of the money out of the salaries to cover some of the overages and the other line items. Bottom line, none of the departments have really gone over 1% of budgeted. This week is the review of August expenditures, to see where we're at, with the anticipation of what we're going to get. But overall, everyone is staying below that number, so we're not having to the budget as a whole. But we will have to make, because our ordinance require that we're going to touch the salaries to make up for some of the other line items that has to happen.
Councilmember Stevens?
So, because I'm just gonna add up the numbers. That will work to 2.4 million by 60.
They're on both, so they're gonna come together, not gonna. We may bring in less on the revenue, but they're bringing less on the expense.
You expect a balance pretty much.
Yes. And I do think we're still gonna add.
Councilmember Esposito? Councilmember Nance?
The cost of mention is in July, it's 80% of the year through. Gas shows is 80% done. I'm assuming that's because the majority of gas service.
Yeah, so their biggest income months are gonna be good January, February, March.
Same thing on water, people took the water and some.
Councilmember Stump?
Maybe put this together, we might have different views on this, no other council members don't views either, but I do see, you know, some of these percent of fiscal year budgets being the actual, revenues versus actual expenditures. A little bit concerning, you know, as of July, we had million plus on the table, and even looking at water, wastewater, and utility, we got $500,000 sitting on the table as far as like money that we could be putting out for streets, towards our wastewater and so forth. What is your goal at the end of this fiscal year, as a percent of, you know, right now what I'm looking at is 63.36% is being spent. What's your goal to get it up to by the end of September?
So we'll never hit 100%.
Sure. What's your goal?
We don't have, I don't set a goal like that.
Okay.
I set a goal that we complete the project that we're capable of completing with the resources. that we have.
Okay.
So every year we do budget with the expectation of being able to seal code 100 blocks. So when you have a department of one, you're not going to seal code 100 blocks.
Sure.
So we try to predict the future and we want to do well, but we had to make it up along.
And see, that's just where I guess, like, without grinding too many gears here, like, when I always look at the budget, you know, you want to hit somewhere, I think, between 85 and 90% of it, and that way you have some wiggle room, but that way you can also, if you don't, you know, the old saying, if you don't spend the money, then you don't get it the next year type thing. Of course, we're probably not gonna do that, but at the same time, people are asking us to work on these big projects, and when we're leaving something upwards of $1 million on the table, that just makes me seem like I can't control people say everything. That's more just a comment, but again, appreciate the work you're doing.
Moving on to action items. Also a reminder out of chapter 23 Code of Ordinances. At any point, a council member can call for the question. And once recognized, you may call for the question to request the discussion be ended and the item be considered immediately put to a vote. A second will be required. The motion is not debatable. The call for the question cannot be used to limit constructive feedback or debate pertaining to the discussion. The presiding officer will determine if a call of the question is well taken or not well taken. All right, so as Megan mentioned, council does receive these packets early in advance. I sure hope everybody had the opportunity to go through them and to reach out to Megan and Gio should you have any questions so that we can move forward. Moving to action item A, City manager.
Approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-09-01, an ordinance authorizing the vacation abandonment and sale of 0.025 acres of city-owned property, being a 10-foot wide strip out of West Brown Avenue right-of-way, adjacent and parallel to the northwest line of Block 8, Hamilton addition to the city of Alpine, authorizing the city manager to execute a deed without warranty to the applicant Lee Feng He, directing that funds from the sale of the city's interest be deposited in the general fund for the purpose of street improvements, providing for the terms and conditions of such thereof, providing for a severability clause, providing for an effective date.
Okay, I need a motion. I need a second. Okay, discussion, city manager.
So you'll notice within the packet that the utilities have reviewed the property. The gas department and the water department are both seeking that the sale of the property not be approved. The gas line does run within the right of way, and also the sewer line is just on the other side of the gas line. We didn't get the packet information in time to submit the sewer line, but it's gas line, the sewer line, both within that water, right.
We have our director of utilities here.
There's a water leak, so I wasn't sure he'd make that.
Okay, water lake. Okay, all right, so, if council should have any questions for our utility director, he gets back there. Councilmember Stowe,
I'm taking the city's word on it.
Councilmember Martinez.
I would like a illustration, Megan, but if there is some gas needed, that's what we go back against the same decision that we had before. And it would be a
Councilmember Nance.
This one, the, thing, phase 109 is pretty important here, the actual general warranty of the property. And in that, it actually says acceptance of conveyance warranty. This conveyance is subject to validly existing internal rights of way, whether a record or not, any questions for treatment and overlapping with improvements, no less the south end and close intelligence for insurance tax. So the property was sold in 2012, those easements were listed there. And going to Google Maps, you can actually see the corner of that, and it shows you in the Google Map record, 2008, 2012, and that gas line was already there in 2008. So I do think that they purchased this property and all that, they should have known that those lines were already in there. That would be doing on that. I do agree with you, Megan, on this. My question is, in 2008, how did something like this actually happen? How did we stop this from happening where, how is this allowed to, how is the property owner allowed to build on something like their buddy has?
I think this has a lot to do with our permit process. We are aware that people are voting without proper permits. I know that our new building official is trying to encourage to work with a lot of the contractors to get them to understand we're not here to hurt you, we're here to help you. But it also helps the property. I also have an internal project that I'm gonna have my assistant start working on, where we actually understand all of our needs. So it says conveying easements, but I'd like to know, do we actually have a physical copy of the easement that maybe outlines what that part of the property is covered? It's just an unfortunate series of events between building officials and doing things without permitting correctly, we added on or remodel.
So this was like the built permit.
Either built or remodeled without proper. Or fortunately, I think y'all do make mistakes. Went out there and it was surveyed. Survey said it was here, wasn't marked properly, and they built a little further over.
The final question I have is, so the owner's option is to basically sell to somebody knowing that that the city has that right, just like they made the purchase in 2012, it's just sold property, but the next buyer. I was under the impression, because I spoke with the realtor, that she wanted to big audit. They weren't able to sell the business. Not sure. Is the general fee with the consent?
Well, it might be in the.
That's not the question. I feel on- The property had sold. Sewer line was been,
So that would be something that the owner of this property reach out to the city and find out if there's no legal title. Or what they're on.
Alessandra, is there a difference between what they're, Gio mentioned about the title not being able to sell because it's not clean?
I'm sorry, could you also repeat? I'm having trouble hearing some council members at this time with the audio.
The question, Gio brought forth was that the realtor said they're unable to sell because they can't obtain a clear title. The only way they can get a clear title is to purchase part of our right of way. Because they built on it.
So that would then come back to the city and being able to clear the title. That would be, are we sure that that's the only block to them having a clear title?
I can't answer that though.
I think the city would have to make sure that that really was the only clear block, and that there were no other parties with an interest involved.
So would we have to sell the property?
To clear the title, I think to keep it clean, yes, we should sell the property.
What does, Alessandra, what does not having a clean title keep the owner from doing?
So it would kind of make it harder for them to be able to sell the property later, you know, if that were an issue, as well as sometimes it can interfere with the maintenance of the property and who is responsible for it.
You know, like, my understanding, the realtor holding sales. I just.
Councilmember Escobedo, you had a question. So, yeah. Councilmember Stevens?
So no one will issue. It's not. It's incumbent upon them. They have to purchase title insurance companies. For the title. So that's my sense. Issue. If I was,
Well, then the concern is if we're selling this section of the right of way, it's the house behind
well, there's an issue there.
So does it go all the way down the street?
Oh, yeah.
And the picture's a little difficult. Is the house on the right of way?
it. It encroaches. So yeah, just a little bit too far over. But these are poor survey lines that are. But I mean, look at the picture, that's not a. That wasn't there.
In the original 2012 survey, does show the encroachment on the property.
Any other discussion? Let's vote. Councilmember Stowe?
You know, I think we're gonna have to fix this in a more linear way down the block, so at this time, I think it needs a bigger fix than what else, so. That's it.
Councilmember Martinez? Councilmember yes. What's the motion?
To approve.
To approve it. So if you vote in favor, you're approving. If you vote against it, nay, you're voting
Nay.
nay. Okay. Councilmember Escobedo? Nay.
Okay.
All right, city secretary, this motion failed by unanimous consent with the city council. The city council members for ordinance 2024-09-0. All right, moving on to action item B.
I have a question.
Sure.
What's the next recourse that? So it's Carol Moore will be transferred.
I'll call her tomorrow. Let her know on the-
Moving on to action item B, city manager.
Actually, Alexander's having trouble hearing the council mics. Is there a way to increase the volume on just the council mics?
No.
No?
So we throw it out to the speaker. Because it's hooked up directly to.
If you guys could speak a little bit louder, so when you ask questions, you need her, she can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me okay, Alessandra?
I can, yes.
Okay. All right, so everybody speak up. Use your classroom teacher voices. All right, action item B, city manager.
Approve the first reading of ordinance 2024-09-04, an ordinance making appropriations for the support of the city of Alpine, Texas for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2024 and ending September 30th, 2025. Appropriating money to a CP fund to pay interest and principal on the city's indebtedness, adopting the annual budget of the city of Alpine, Texas for the fiscal year 24-25.
The motion,
I'll vote to present approve the motion.
I need a second. City manager discussion.
So over the past couple months, we've discussed the upcoming fiscal year's budget. What you have included in your package is the update made after the last meeting, which included the tax rate that was discussed. As a result, you'll notice that the increase in the tax rate will bring in an estimate of $12,576, which is less than a 1% increase. But I kind of wanted to explain what the council is. Remember, our M&O rate has gone, our INS rate has gone down, so our M&O goes up. But because we're looking at our no new revenue, we're increasing off of that. When we have higher appraised values, our overall tax rate decreases. So yes, we are bringing in more money. Yes, we are lowering our overall tax rate at the same time. So I know that taxes can be really. The estimated revenue on new property, this is just the percentage for new property, would be 13,328. I know that can look a little odd, well, overall you're bringing in 12,000. But if you segregate out just the new property, it's 13. We are looking at a proposed tax rate of 0.439205 compared to last year's proposed tax rate of 0.457554. So our overall proposed tax rate is lower. We will bring in more money because we do have the higher appraised value. Included within the packet is a summary of everything that we look forward to completing in this next year. We do look at our sales tax. We do look at our hotel occupancy tax. It does provide a breakdown of our debt. The proposed debt pay, INS rate is 0.010198, much lower than it has been. It does provide a difference between what is covered by our general fund, which is government activities, and then what's covered by our business funds, which is our water, our wastewater, airport, hot, and gas. There is some explanation there about compensation, staffing, recruiting, health benefits, our different liability coverages, which have increased. That's our property, insurance, our workman's comp insurance. A little discussion on our grants, our focus on the city fleet to get that program revitalized. And then of course the capital assets. The capital assets are all dependent on, of course, following the proper procurement. We did have a leadership planning session this past Friday to outline some of our big goals moving forward, making sure that we work together as a team. It is hard because one department relies on another department. Can't just come in and say, we get that RFP out tomorrow. doesn't quite work that way. So it's coordinating and planning when we need to have things out. As we've learned with the hot patch machine, sometimes getting heavy equipment takes longer than we anticipate. And we are looking at purchasing a $200,000 loader. We have to procure that correctly. We're looking at a $125 backhoe. Of course, we have our current layout plan in progress. The gas department still wants to move forward with the first phase of smart meters. We're looking at a budget 1.15 for the wastewater treatment plant. We did get the bids and everything situated after this was completed. It is estimated at 1.7, but we'll have that discussion later on in today's meeting. But the 1.15 is in the budget. We have about 1.5 available from the American Rescue Plan Act. And then, of course, some building maintenance that needs to be done. It provides a little explanation of our capital improvement plan, which, as I mentioned to council, starting in October, you're going to start to see a big shift in how we do the budget and CIPs. Of course, it does go over each of the different fund balances or net positions. What we anticipate to be either the underrun or overrun. It will vary slightly because we are getting hit with the bigger purchases in the general fund this past month and this current. It does break down a little bit of the additional information for each of the priority projects. The compensation is a big one that will help with the retention, moving forward with that. The Alpine Police Department, I've tasked the chief on several years now with the community-oriented policing and to making sure he's involved in as much as possible with the community, because they are our first responders first and, involved in an emergency, and I want them to be well recognized. Building Services has done some restructuring within his department. I love saying that he has 2 employees, but he is restructured, and so of course the training that comes with it. Software, I have spoken with the county, kind of that concept of what they've been moving forward with. We have the Public Works Department. We still have budgeted there for the fencing. Of course, the street department with the heavy loader and the seal coating being a priority, which we have a workshop scheduled for October 1st, to go over the streets and have some clear direction on that. And then of course, the big one is our utilities. Out of all of our projects, the utility department does have the highest demand, and probably what could be considered the shortest staff. All of that is broken down. We look at our current known risks, our unknown risks, and a little bit of a discussion after our leadership planning. Next year's focus and the direction we're going to go will be clearer within the budget. And then I like to tell my team that moving forward, the numbers will be in appendix. We do break down each of the departments based on all of your input and discussions, the priorities of each of the departments. We try to compromise and include as much as possible.
Okay, great. Councilmember Martinez?
I have no question.
Okay, Councilmember Escobedo? Okay. Councilmember Nance?
So this is for 3.5%, the highest we can go for voter approval.
Correct.
That's
Well,
proposed.
the discussion was the 3.5, the increase over the no new revenue. The highest we can go is the voter approval, but then you have the ability that it could be petitioned.
Voter approval would be what percent over 3.5, you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't have that.
So I was thinking anything over 3.5%, they could vote against, or am I
No, they could.
thinking over 3.5? And so the proposed one we're doing is 3.5.
Yes, over the no new revenue.
You were saying that's only gonna bring in 13,000 more ad valorem? Wow, that little, huh? Just running numbers, just to kind of give clarification for people that own homes in the area. From the current tax rate for just for city taxes on $100,000 homes, about $457. And if we get this tax increase, it'd be $483. A $250,000 home, it'd be about $1,150 this year. The coming year that we were voting on, so about $1,207. So about a $250,000 home. I think we don't do this normal. It's a $64 increase in your city taxes over here. That's only your city taxes, so that's not school or everything else. It's also going to be good effective. But that is the only things I really had. Oh, one last question. The 2005 CO bond has no interest. Is that Can you clarify why that is?
So that is a bond through the Texas Water Development Board, and they have different pots of money that you can go after. Some of them are like the one that we went after for the lead and copper, where it's 51% grants and then 49% the city would have to come up with. This one, I believe was, I want to say the wrong pot of money, but it was a no interest.
No interest on that one?
Yes,
Or on that
so I believe total on that one was close to 9 million. It's one payment a year. And that one is only under the water department.
one? That was everything I had.
Councilmember Stevens?
So I just, 3 points isolated. One, I support the 4% reduction in property tax rate against where we are now. That results in increased revenue to the city, although de minimis, and the increase in the budget of 2.75% over the 6.8.
Councilmember Stout?
Thank you, Mayor. I gotta agree with Councilmember Stevens in the same way. Kind of going from a hierarchy view, it seems like we are bringing property values closer to market value. That's kind of what I've seen, as a lot have gone up in the last year, and there weren't as many folks that bought them. So hopefully that means that folks feel like we're getting closer to that, which also would mean that they can sell their houses sometimes closer to market rate. Yeah, timelier, closer to market values and so forth. We don't want to lose good people, but that's a good thing. At the same time, that's balancing with, why decrease funds when we have so many big projects to do. So I guess that's just a catch-22 dilemma there. What I do hope is, I'll just reiterate again, is I probably will turn into a record player, but I hope we'll get closer to spending our budget in future years, just with the amount of big projects that we have. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, let's vote. Councilmember Stout? Councilmember Hines? City Secretary, council unanimously approved the first reading of ordinance 2024-09-04. Moving on to action item C, city manager.
Approved resolution 2024-09-01, a resolution continuing collaborative improvement efforts for 24-25 between the city of Alpine and the Alpine Country Club to accompany the 2016 lease.
I need a motion.
So I'll make the motion.
Okay, so that is on
I
there.
think it's a petition. People sign in October.
I need a second. Okay, city manager.
So as part of the 2016 lease that was assigned to the country club in the city of Alpine, it required an annual resolution outlining the expectation. I kept the expectations in line with what has been done in the prior years. This includes the discount for the water being provided to the Alpine Country Club for one specific account. And then of course, we notified it as ground subs. We make available, as long as it tests correctly, all of the affluent water that we can produce to the Alpine Country Club. Providing them access to the mulch for use at the golf course and the clubhouse to help with the reduction of dust and projects that they may need. They continually to invest in the capital improvement. The only big difference that I put in this, and I did notify both Amy White and Bonnie Molinar, was that they provide quarterly reports to the city council on their capital improvements and overall operations to be held during the second city council meeting of the month preceding the end of the quarter, which specifically would be October 15th, 2024, January 21st, 2025, April 15th, 2025, and July 15th. This allows for both parties to have that conversation. Setting up the meetings has kind of been hit and miss throughout the years. I don't believe it's any one person's fault. Just don't keep on top of it sometimes. This outlines the specifics and they've already been set up the calendar and, the country club has been. And we do have Mr. Bullimar here this evening if you have questions for the
All right, Councilmember Escobedo. Councilmember Martinez. Councilmember Stowe.
Appreciate you being here, sir. Thank you for your time.
Let me remind y'all to raise your voices and to receive the message if people are having trouble hearing this.
So I've been sitting here for a pretty short time, but what I have noticed is that without making a definitive statement, y'all are probably one of the biggest water users in the city. That's a guess, but educated noting that. With that, I am hoping that y'all will start working with the city more as we get our wastewater facility up to par and doing the purple pipe. Are you familiar with that concept?
I have a concept of them.
Yes. And so it's to my understanding that we're sending a tank or two over a week on some weeks and maybe not in other weeks. Is that correct, Megan? I'm sorry, I'm not bounced back.
No, it varies. They work the schedule out with the country club on when we have it available. I call them pickups, as long as the plant does pickup.
Sure.
It produces the quality which it's in.
Sure.
And sometimes like this beautiful weather we have, with all this rain, they obviously don't. So it's gonna vary. The summer months, they should be getting it once or twice a day, depending on how they want.
Absolutely, that makes sense. And you know, my thought process here, it didn't bounce off what you just said, but my thought process is even when it's raining a bunch, we want to make policies for the worst drought ever. That's the best. Pure purple piping and move towards that. So it seems like that might be a disconnect.
Yes, so
It is. Sorry, you can't go 100% pure fluid out there because they do have the restrooms in the middle.
Sure.
That has to sit on that potable water line, and
Yeah.
of course the building itself has to sit on the potable.
So there are investments that they'll have to, or someone will have to make. Either increase purple lining or settle. Sure, okay.
Not even close.
Top five?
Nope.
No. So we're gonna have to get a list of that here soon, because I wanna know who's doing it. It's not me. I appreciate your time. I hope that we can continue this conversation down the road.
Yeah,
Thank you. Roy.
one more thing. Anything that the foot water is gonna be is not gonna be used anywhere around the drains that can damage the drains.
Okay.
So that, I mean, we can use whatever foot water you give us, it's a big help for us.
Yeah, and so it's like you can't put bleach on your grass.
Yes,
I get
correct.
that. Yeah,
Yes.
so that's our hope, I think, that we can get better water to sending back towards the pipes. Hopefully that the quality of the water that we're sending back is gonna be better in the future as well, or is that another assumption that I'm making?
So as the plant gets rehabilitated, the quality is gonna change. I haven't seen the hiccups.
Okay.
Right now, we do meet the same minimum requirements to get the water out, which is why they have the use of it. But as we change the plant itself, that quality of the water.
And-
Now, I'm not gonna sell it to drink.
Yeah, we're not doing it. The state, I think, did just allow that we can start doing it, but we're not obviously near that, nor are we talking about that. But, one last comment is, I know there's numerous, dead trees.
Yes.
I hope y'all will get.
Yeah, we already started tearing them down already. And also that metered water that comes in, that also supplies for the clubhouse also. So it's a direct line to there, which, for our eyes, for drinking water, for everything else there also.
I've had fun on the course. I know a lot of people that have a lot of fun too. Y'all are great resources. Thank you for all you do.
Councilmember Stevens.
So thanks for being here. My question was just put it for the quarterly report, just to help a little bit. They have a well on site. They use a lot of water from their well, so they are not even close to being.
Yeah, so if they were using all the city, it wouldn't, yeah.
The only thing I would suggest is I've offered many times to haul loads. I got trucks access. So you guys want it? At all?
Yes, we'll begin our projects the end of tournament season, which will be, around the 12th and 13th of October. Yeah, we'll get all that started, and our next meeting, we can discuss more of that.
Your manager.
I just want to add one thing for the October 15th meeting. I'd like us to, as part of this discussion, coordinating what you need. Because I know I do get the emails from the country club, hey, you have some, asphalt, you have this. Coordinating back with the team, in their busy season makes it harder. So I think at the 15th, if you have that, we need some balls, we need your milling, stuff like that, we can coordinate better from here as well.
Okay, Councilmember Diaz.
Question. Is the 60% discount the same that they've always had?
Yes.
That has been in perpetuity, I guess, or it's always. On this resolution, I see we have a comment in here, whereas the Alpine Country Club currently not receiving financial assistance from other government entities, and whereas the city of Alpine and Alpine Country Club will annually review the lease agreement and progress of the capital improvement plan. So my question on that is that you guys do have a capital improvement plan, and what I would actually like to see would be, we do require a capital improvement plan, which would find out the improvements that you guys are making. No money. Grants or anything else like that. Not really, needing to be a partner. Help you guys actualize those things, but if we, I think, like more water or anything else like that. Going back and talking, that could be HOT money or anything, because I'll do have heads and heads. And if we could talk about, how much coconut we received over the last 2 years. Just 40,000 last year and maybe 30,000 this year. There's 70,000 right there. That's not what's spoken about. I would like to see some HOT money pushed to you guys, because all our bringing people in the community, which will help actualize that.
Councilmember Stevens.
So just some history. It used to be a not-for-profit. They forego that because of the expenses associated with it. So while I hear it, they gotta take some action, or as the city council, how they take actions. And so there's a big history that goes by. So originally established as a not-for-profit.
I think it was because they weren't 501c3. Y'all had a specific social club,
Which they could have complied with. They chose not to. So I've been through all the taxes. I'm having it with you afterwards. They had the opportunity.
Well, on that too, I would mention 8 of the 9 holes are city property. Correct. So that money doesn't necessarily have to go towards, increasing clubhouse or doing it, that kind of stuff. It could be reinvested. So the city, it's gotta be put in purple pipe it. Be more effective, ultimately, we will be bringing up numbers.
So we have offered pipe, we offered pots.
I'm looking forward to part of
Yes.
that.
Like I say, all projects will start in October, and I will keep you all updated on that.
All right, any other discussion? Let's vote. City Secretary, Resolution 2024-09-01 has been approved unanimously by the City Council. Moving on to action item D. Councilmember Stowe.
Approve resolution 2024-09-02, a resolution requesting support from state representatives in the legislature to pass a bill authorizing the city to transition from May general elections to November general elections. Includes
Get your motion.
making a motion to.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Stone?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm bringing this back before the council, just as we noticed that, voting is obviously in Texas a big deal right now. We're leading to a big election. Many of y'all know, we typically have between 10, 12, maybe 15% of those in the city, actually participate in our May elections, which are sometimes around Cinco de Mayo, as you'll remember in this past election as well. I think this is, again, a pretty common sense idea. I'll note as well that, the election, this is really about being disconnected from any, local, political process. That's what we're doing to these folks. If we don't try to move this to be able to bring more people in, a lot of folks say it's apathy. Well, apathy is fought with ease in one day. And I'll just end in this by saying that this is not a resolution saying we're moving to November. It's asking merely for permission. And with that, there's a lot of work. This is probably a 4 or 8 year plan because we'll have to line up, our different terms and different things like that. And so, we'll have to try, I envision that the ISD will want to do it and other types of governing bodies that then everybody in the community, if they want to be part of it, they just got to show up the first Tuesday in November. And it's as easy as that. The other reasons that I know I'm going a little further here is that a lot of folks will notice that, that we think that they won't have as much folks being able to vote down ballot. The data just doesn't show that. There's numerous studies. You'll notice some things, as well as talking about in different studies. If you look at these, it will go from literally 10 to 15% in local elections to 50%. And the only reasons that I literally looked at an MIT study earlier is that they're saying is folks don't want to have more voter turnout. And I know none of you want that. And so I really hope you'll consider this resolution.
Councilmember Stevens?
We brought this up before, we wrote it down. I think we have enough things to work in the city. I think it's so funny, nice as to work it. And spending time. So 6 to 8 years.
Councilmember Escobedo? Councilmember Nance?
Go back on the side, said it much bad. Yeah. I think the only non-partisan elections in the state of Texas are the boards, like school boards and stuff, and we're the only ones that don't run bars at these sites. Thought that was interesting. That came about in the 1900 gallons of permit. The thing I was gonna say is, we don't want to lean, I was against this originally, I voted against it as well last time. I didn't know how common it was. It seems to be extremely common. Austin, Houston, El Paso, Midland, Odessa, geographically smaller cities are actually doing this as well. I actually put documentation in on this one because when I looked at it, one page that was missing in here was the very first page of the Texas election, about 1,034 pages or something like that. It was going for consistent elections. So when I read that, I thought this is not consistent because now people are having a choice in what it is. Texas election code is so I put it in some of the other. I've really been educated, I think. I'd like to hear Sheila's perspective on how it affects this.
So, either way would be, if we did move to November, I think it would kind of be easier for us just because we would be required to conduct the joint meeting party. So that would, allow us to contract for certain counties to run the election. So we would free up time in our department to do other things. I think it definitely would improve voter turnout. A good example being in 2020, we had twice as much turnout in the mayor election as we did mayor Dean's election, which was really high turnout for us as well. With 744 for mayor Dean's that election, we had 1,400 for any almost 2020. That election. But ultimately, really what you guys want. That's fine, you know, it does take a lot of effort from our department to conduct them. You know, the only benefit I see would be the increased voter turnout and the increased time that we could spend on other ordinances and other things like that, if we did. So I think there's benefits.
And so when we talk about that, when I was researching it, Dallas as well does not have a November election, and they have about a 10% turnout. So very comparable to what we have, whether you're Dallas or Alpine, there's just not a large amount of turnout. You do get the turnout by having it in November, but that doesn't necessarily mean the voters actually educated. They may not care at all about municipal elections. In my personal opinion, if you're voting in a municipal election in May, you're probably gonna vote in the state national election in November. Not necessarily vice versa for November, voters to come back in and vote, obviously, because there's no turnout on those times. So I'm 50-50 on this. I'm not passionate about it, but I think it can make sense. And one last thing I was gonna say is, if we did pursue this, it might make sense now, only because we're already going to Cesar Blanco and some more state representatives on the STR ordinance to pull out the 50% option on that. We'd be going back to our state representatives and saying, add two things to the menu, short-term rentals, and now this one as well. And Cesar Blanco is gonna be here September 10th, his mobile team. So if we did set something up, that would be a time to kind of put it on their radar, if it's something that we've already just.
Then I could just mention one thing, when I go to election law seminars, the vast majority of cities don't run their own elections, they contract with the county. When we do raising hands of who runs their own election, I'm one of three usually in the room, under them. So, you know, either way, like I said, we're good, we don't want to go.
Would it be, what about possibly?
That is something we've yet to find out, because I think we'll have a little bit more insight as far as cost is concerned after, we run this election. You know, we are preparing the agreement currently, and we'll have it presented to you all for approval, probably in a meeting or two. But, you know, we are going to be splitting the cost of Brewster County as far as the election workers are concerned, and then, of course, our ballots. It's a joint ballot, so in November, when you vote president, all the way down to municipal, our charter meetings will be on the same ballot.
Does that mean if the county's running the election, that, are they covering the full cost, even if the municipal candidates are on there?
We reimburse for our portion of the cost. And the other entities are also paying shares as well.
So they're running it, but we still have a cost.
Yeah, we'll start the cost.
And then as well on that, is there anything weird where you would vote in one location for a municipal election and a different location for, say, something else, president or state?
There will be separate ballots, so, you know, precinct 1, for example, will have voters from 1, 2, 4, and 5 as far as wards are concerned. And there's just, you know, I have a list if anybody wants to see it. But they're having to buy ballots, like, for each ward in the different precincts, depending on if the, you know, people in those precincts are in, specific.
Does that mean, so somebody might have to vote in separate locations?
No, they will vote in.
Use in ballots. So for example, my ward, people end up voting in, with different ballots because there'll be a ballot for those in Ward 5 that are in precinct 1 than there are in others. So my mom and I live in different precincts that actually have different ballots, even though we live in the same ward. So you are going to produce a lot more ballots.
Is that just by design? It obviously, as I noted, this could be a 4-year type ordeal. So is there a way that we could clean up, you know, for instance, last meeting, we noted there were 660 something in one ward and there's 1,000 in another. So when we get towards redistricting or get towards evening these out, even on the county level, is there a way to design out to where it looks like an Austin or a Fredericksburg or another place that you go in and you go all the way down one belt?
Just don't assume that the number of people who are registered in a ward is different than the population of that ward.
Sure.
So there are higher registers in different wards, even though the population is pretty close to the same.
It could possibly be either way, but
Yeah, so I don't think you want to make an assumption about we're going to redistrict based upon number of registered voters. It's really based upon population. How people choose to register or not is.
and that's something I'm looking to look into. It could be either way, yeah.
Councilmember Martinez?
We talk about this and, the majority we agree that we have other things more important right now. It's a good idea. But I think we need to focus on the priorities right now, so.
May I make a closing argument? Thank you. Go ahead, Rick.
I was just gonna call.
Okay.
Well, this will be the second time we brought this up. We have things to go work on.
Sure, I'm gonna make a
I need
closing
a
argument.
second to the, call for question. I see. Okay. All right, so we're gonna
And
vote.
Mayor, may I make a
So
closing
you may
argument?
not be called for the question. Remember I read
It's unfortunate that the mayor
Okay.
is pulling votes here.
of order. One more and you're out. All right, let's vote.
Is there a question of
Let's
maybe
vote.
behind the scenes here? She just said that y'all talked about this before.
Okay, I'm gonna call for a vote to remove Councilmember Stone. All in favor, please raise your right hand.
Question.
I am calling to remove Councilmember Stone. All in favor, raise your right hand. Let's vote.
I'll ask one more time. May I make a,
No,
Wait.
you may not. Point of order,
I'll vote for.
okay?
What is the motion?
The motion is to approve the resolution 2024-09-02 to request support for the state representatives to move the city election from May to November. Okay? Okay, okay. So we have 2 nays and 3 for, so the motion passes to approve resolution 2024-09-02. All right, we're gonna take a break this time, 5 minutes, please, to the secretary.
I can see parts of it at least.
Would you grab her?
Sorry, I didn't remember this one.
Oh, okay. You okay?
Oh, my God.
So we go resume 6:44 p.m. Thank you, City Secretary. Moving on to action item E, City Manager.
Approved replat 2024-09-01. The replat application to allow the applicant, Sarah Bowe, to remove internal lot lines and reflect updated ownership of a city alley that was purchased by the applicant. The subject property is located at the corner of North Fourth Street and East Avenue E and is legally described as lot 6, 7, and 8, along with a 15.67 foot wide strip of vacated alley lying adjacent to the east of said lot. All of Block 3, original town site of Alpine, as shown in subdivision plat on file in volume 2, page 97, deed records of Brewster County, Texas. The property ID of the subject property is 11805. The current zoning classification of the property is C2 Business District. If the replat is approved, the zoning classification will remain C2 Business District.
Okay, I need a motion. I need a second.
Second.
City Manager.
So this is the next step in the process of getting this area cleaned up for Ms. Bowe. The city originally approved to sell the alley with the easement for the utilities that lie underneath. The next step is to replat the property so that it does show that it all belongs to Ms. Bowe. This is just a normal protocol.
Councilmember Stevens,
Did the deed get signed? Thank you.
Councilmember Snow, Councilmember Escobedo, Councilmember Martinez, Councilmember Nance.
Do have questions, sorry. Unfortunately. We have a Brewster CAD map here. You can actually see where all the parcels are. Is that entire street has alleys, pretty much from them. So my question is, looking at this, even on those parking lots, that is composed of 3 separate parcels, even though they treat that as one business. So we have an alley, it looks like, straight through the building close. Another one over here. We've got another one if we go to Old Quarters over there. In that parking lot, there's another, what would be a city alleyway in theory, right there. So through the bank, exactly what West Texas National Bank. So that whole, we're filled. So the only reason I bring that up is whatever we do here, I hope it is consistent in every form of process or whatever this replatting is. I think we're probably gonna get a lot of these and, but whatever precedent step should be fine.
And that is why we're doing this, with this property. We did it with the Family Crisis Center as well. They bought the alley that went through that, building as well. We can undo what was done in the past, but the fact that they are not replatted does show that these are city property. So to clean this up, the replat allows her to have full control with these.
For easement, which has a water main. So on the north side of that is Family Dollar. Does the water main continue up through Family Dollar's parking lot?
No, the sewer main, actually, there's a manhole right in the middle that shows where it goes.
Okay, so there's nothing within that Family Dollar parking lot.
Not that I'm sure.
That's all my question.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All right, City Secretary, the approved replat 2024-09-01 was approved unanimously by all city council members. Moving on to action item F, City Manager.
Approved special use permit 2024-08-01. A special use permit allowing the applicant, Michelle Matone, to obtain a retail dealer's on-premise license permit through the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission for alcohol sales at the subject property. Bach Burger. The subject property is located at 601 East Avenue E. The property owner of record is Sandra Baeza. The parcel ID of the subject property is 10628.
I need a motion.
I think, second.
Okay. All right, so Councilmember Stevens, you made the motion. Councilmember Stone, you seconded. All right, discussion, city manager.
Ms. Mentone has applied and followed the processes to obtain a special use permit to be able to sell alcohol at Boss Burger located at 601 East Avenue E. She is here present this evening if you guys have additional questions. Once approved, she would still need to leave to wrong post that she will be selling alcohol.
Yes, so she would need to follow the normal processes that the is require, that she would need to bring the application to me tomorrow, so I can send out one.
She just doesn't get to go home and start selling. There's still some additional steps that you have to take with the teams.
Councilmember Nance.
It's like you started the process on July 11th.
Did.
All this stuff.
I actually started in May. I posted the 60-day sign in May, which is for TABC. Because I didn't realize there was a city process as well. So I would have done that at the same time.
She was very
Had
excited.
I known.
Very cool. Only other comment I was gonna say is just great to see, businesses and entrepreneurs starting small businesses here. That's supportive, it's pretty. Works.
Councilmember Escobedo. Councilmember Martinez. Councilmember Stone.
Come up, you waited this whole meeting if you want to. You know, yeah, it's.
Just wanted to make sure it's the right address.
Yeah, you did fantastic. Thank you for reaching out to everybody and using the process. And I'm looking forward to, on the occasion, having a burger and a beer. Thank you.
Councilmember Stevens.
Thank you, I support this as well. I would like to be in like. This is. Half a trip. South side of Kirkland is actually a C2 zone, not residential. Residential is allowed to be built in C2. But the levels actually, I also say. Very so cost. It's also cost. So I get. Cat channels. All the properties adjacent to the are back C2 property. A in side, residential house siding, and residential houses. So only perspective.
Any other discussion?
I think Michelle would be an amazing neighbor too, and if there are issues, she responded very well. So.
I'm sorry, sir, we had public comments.
I was here at 5:30 and I didn't get none of
You
that.
were not here at 5:30, sir.
So I'm wasting my time to object to this.
All right, let's vote. Councilmember Stowe.
Aye.
City Secretariat passes unanimously to approve special use permit 2024-08-01. All right, moving on to action item G. City manager.
Approved bid proposal for repairs to clarifier 1 and drying bed at the wastewater treatment plant to the lowest qualified bidder, Dow Tech Specialty Contractor, for an estimated $1,760,481.
Okay, I need a motion. Need a second? Okay, discussion, city manager.
I'd like to make the comment that we do have a proposal in the package for review as well as a PowerPoint. Andy, who is representing Jacob and Martin, is on this evening, and he is actually going to do a small presentation. I think it's kind of important to explain how we got to where we're at and the importance of this project. Just gonna give him a quick notice that he's ready. Oh, okay. And I kind of want to reiterate, this has been an ongoing process. We do anticipate that there will be some reporter changes because a lot of our projects out at the wastewater treatment plant come with unknowns. The last big one that we did with the aerator, we had to redo the electrical, not knowing that it had been done incorrectly 20 years ago. So Andy is online. I will do a screen share so that he can do his presentation. And please, if you guys have questions, please don't hesitate. And then ask him. Andy?
Good evening. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Andy Visalia with Jacob and Martin. And as Megan introduced, this is a project that we've been working on for some time. And we advertised for bids and received bids. To get a full understanding of the project, I think it's good to back up a little bit. In February of 2022, Jacob and Martin did an evaluation of the water treatment plant. There were 12 total recommendations, and 2 of them were packaged together into this project. This project includes repairs to clarifier number 1 and also to sludge drying beds numbers 4 through 9. Can you go to the next slide, please? So clarifier 1, it's a secondary clarifier, and the scope of the work for this project is to basically remove the guts, remove the electrical, remove the mechanical, do some cleaning and repairs and coating to the concrete, and then to put new clarifier, electrical and mechanical equipment back in there. It's improved equipment, working with a manufacturer's representative. We're also adding a couple of safety features in there. We're going to remove and replace the handrail as well as the steps to the clarifier for safety of the employees at the wastewater plant. Next slide. So for the existing 6 sludge drying beds, the contractor will be removing and disposing of the sludge. They'll also be removing, disposing, and replacing the sludge drying bed media, which consists of sand on top, a gravel layer below, and below the gravel layer is the under drain system, which consists of larger gravel as well as the piping. So we're going to remove all the media, all the under drain, and then replace it. It also includes replacing the liner that goes between the media and the concrete. The concrete runners that you can see on this slide here, as well as 2 of the ramps, are going to be removed and replaced. And then there'll also be miscellaneous concrete repairs as they take all the media and sludge out. If there's any compromise to the walls, it will also be repaired. Next slide. Before we go into the bids, I do want to make sure that the council is aware that we do have TCEQ approval to construct the project. Next slide. So we bid this project with 5 different line items. The first one is the upfront cost of the contractor, which includes mobilization, bonds, and insurance. And then a lump sum item would be all the repairs and replacements to the clarifier. The third bid item is the repairs and replacements to the sludge drying beds. And then we have 2 different concrete repairs that will be time and material based. So we wrote in the dollar amount, which is $50,000 that you'll see later for these bid line items, and the contractor will have to submit the payrolls and receipts for any time and materials put in to do the concrete repairs. The reason we did the time and materials for the concrete repairs is because we can't really see the concrete until they actually remove the equipment, remove the sludge, remove the media. So we had 2 bidders, Dowtech, which is out of Bayard, which is near Abilene, and then Texas Water and Soil, which is out of San Angelo. Both contractors have done multiple projects for Jacob and Martin. Both have good reputation. And as you can see from the bids, Dowtech was slightly lower at $1,760,481. Next slide. And so our recommendation is to award the full contract to Dowtech in the amount of $1,760,481. As I mentioned before, line items 4 and 5 include the time and material, so they'll have to submit the payrolls and receipts for those items, and it could come in under the $50,000 But until they start working on that, we don't know how much concrete repairs will be necessary. So at this point, I'd like to see if there's any questions.
Councilmember Stevens.
So you talk about T and M, so who's managing the costs? Is that you all managing the cost? And what are the upper bounds and how do you make sure you get that work? Because T and M's an open checkbook.
Okay, excellent question. So we will be out on site periodically as necessary, probably a minimum of once per month. You also have your wastewater staff who are very familiar and worked with us on the project. So once they remove from the clarifier, you'll have to remove all the liquids, you'll have to remove all the equipment. We'll be able to see the condition of the concrete. The contractor will be submitting photos. And then for sludge drying beds, once they remove all the sludge, all the media, the piping, we'll be able to get a good visual of that. And then we'll be able to come up to a good mutual decision on what concrete repairs will be necessary. Based on those repairs that are agreed upon, at that point then, as they begin to work, they'll have to submit the payrolls and receipts for any equipment.
So I heard all that. You're talking to guys who know lots of stuff. Okay, and so I'm trying to understand how you're gonna manage cost and ensure it's gonna stay within your targeted budget. What contingencies do you have, or we just stuck whatever the overages?
So Andy, I know.
Okay, so if,
Andy, the last big project we had, he wasn't actually with Jacob and Mark. And we did have some big issues with the cost. And so Kurt and his team have been really good about before that they approve it before it even comes to us. So if they question it, so if the contractor says, I'm gonna buy 50,000 worth of just concrete, the Jacob and Martin themselves, they've been really good at monitoring and then having that discussion with, okay, we do have to have a change order, and then they explain and walk through the process. Last year, our change orders, I call them minimal, they weren't large amounts, so I wasn't worried, it was still staying within our budget. I think that Andy and Kurt have procedures in place. Andy's new to the team. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but I know that all of the invoices get reviewed by them before we even cut a check.
So what contingency?
yes, that is correct. Yeah, and I apologize for not clarifying on the question the first time. But yes, it will be a cooperative discussion with the contractor and with us. And so they will have to be submitting that information so we have an idea in advance of what's necessary. So for instance, if the concrete does exceed 50,000, before they can actually get paid for that, it'll have to come back to council if by chance it comes in higher than that. One thing I do want to add is on the sludge drying beds for the concrete repairs, some of the concrete work is part of the lump sum bid item. Those are the known items. But as I mentioned before, until we can see the concrete, we don't know the scope of work. My personal opinion is I think the $50,000 for each of those items should be sufficient. But until we can see the condition of it, it's going to be really hard to judge.
And the change orders can be approved by council. We will have that discussion with if it's over 25%, if it's, and then you guys would have that discussion. So Kirk was really good at coming back and I will say Jacob and Mark ate money on that last project because of a missed RFP that resulted in an additional cost. And it was unfortunate that they ate it, but every change order comes before it. They don't just approve anything. So you can approve if it hits 50 and I have to come back to council and say, we would have them explaining why. And you would get to see that documentation.
Councilmember Escobedo.
I think my only concern right now is, the coming down. I know that we have the employees are working, but I still think that once a month is not. Okay, at least not this kind of project.
Councilmember Nance.
A couple questions. So what I just heard then is we cover overages, but they are approved by council.
We can set it up that anything that comes over, a change order. So you're approving the 1.7, anything that goes over that, would be a change order. and that would have council approve it. But then you can also set your levels on change order, because if it comes over by $5, I don't know if you exactly want to go.
You know, just kind of what Mr. Stevens said, you know, just what precautions can we have for our bridges? Next one is, how many total sledge beds do we have? I see 6 are getting fixed.
8.
8 total?
Two are not usable.
2. Oh, 2 are just are not being used at all. So that was gonna be my question then. How do we work around the sludge bed? What happens to the sludge while this work is getting done?
So that's why we have the drying belts, that the sludge moves through that and goes into the dumpster to be taken away. Right now, we're utilizing a little bit of both. Our drying beds aren't up to the standard that they need to be. And then, of course, the drying belt, it is a large mechanical device that breaks down. So they've been kind of going back and forth.
So we foresee this working. We're not gonna be having major issues losing all of our sludge.
If you may, I can add some clarification on that. As part of our contract documents, sludge drying beds 4 and 5 are 1 unit. They're 2 in 1, we'll call it basin. 6, 7, 8, and 9 are in another one. So we put stipulations in the contract that the contractor can only take one of the basins, if you will, out of service at one time. Then they have to come back and put it in service fully before they begin working on the other one. So therefore, there will be no, you'll be able to continue processing sludge throughout the whole project.
Perfect.
And then also, if you don't mind, on the concrete repairs, I did want to clarify that $50,000 is an allocation. So they are not authorized to spend that unless and until the work is determined and approved. And then if they begin to exceed it, that's when it'll come back to council. So by approving this, you're approving up to 50,000, but no more than that.
Curious question, the concrete, where does that get discarded to? Is that our landfill?
Yes. Unless they want to.
I'm sorry, I was having trouble hearing that question.
I was just wondering where the concrete goes, and maybe just clarify that goes to our landfill. Perfect.
I heard the first part of it about where the concrete goes.
So he was wondering where after everything's been pulled up, where does it get disposed of? And I told him it will get disposed of at our landfill.
And then.
Yes, it is the contractor's responsibility to dispose of all items.
Okay, 2 final questions. The lifespan, what will be the lifespan of these sludge beds and the clarifier estimated?
20 years.
Years.
So this should give us an additional 20 years of life on just those 2 improvements.
Perfect. And final question, project timeline. When does the project start and end?
As soon as we get a signed contract, we'll start timing it out. So the clarifier, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, the clarifier is has to be fabricated. So it's not, we go to
Yes,
wall.
it'll be fabricated.
So there will be the downtime of them getting the fabrication taken care of. And I know that Andy and I have spoken with how do we ensure the project stays on task? We had a lot of hiccups with the air raid, so that we're trying to avoid. So the things that they can do while it's being fabricated is stuff the contract has to be.
So we don't have an estimated finish.
We do, because this is ARPA funds, they have to be done by the end of 26. Ideally,
It's a
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Megan. It's a 365-day contract, so they have to complete it within that time frame. As Megan was alluding to, for the clarifier, it will probably go close to that because of the manufacturing of the equipment that's going in there. Sludge drying beds, they can begin and start that at any point as soon as they're awarded a contract.
I appreciate Rick knowing a lot more about this than I do, but looking forward to our system work better. Appreciate it.
Hey, Andy, right now these are dried-in sludge drying beds, correct? And having been out there a number of times, I know we've had some issues, ramps going in. Are these gonna be scoop outs or still dry-ins? Dry-ins?
Megan, can you clarify that for me, please? I apologize. I'm having a little trouble hearing some of the questions.
So he asked if the drying beds are gonna be scoop out, or if they're gonna continue to be the drive-in, where they drive in on that ramp and pull it all out.
Once this is completed, it'll continue to have the concrete runners where your staff will be able to go in there and pull it out. For the construction project, the contractor will be removing the concrete runners and disposing of it. So they'll be coming in there, they'll be scooping it out, putting it into a truck on site, and then it'll be hauled off.
Still dry.
So still driving. Is drive-in the most effective? Because we tend to break them.
So Andy,
Well, so mhm.
go ahead,
Go ahead, Megan.
you go ahead.
Okay. So for the concrete runners, and again, I apologize for the audio on this. For the concrete runners, you have little bobcats that the staff uses that will go in there and they will use that to scoop the sludge out when they're working on it. A couple of the concrete runners have been damaged and we are replacing them. And then the other ones that aren't damaged, we still need to replace them because of all the media that's underneath that's supporting them. To answer your question, it is pretty difficult to come up with a real good tried true method. This is in the industry, probably the most common method of putting these runners on there and having a bobcat or some other sort to go in there. But yes, the staff does have to be careful what type of equipment you put on top of those runners because of the structural integrity.
So
I was gonna say, also from prior knowledge, they didn't always use the best tools to remove it. So when they would go in there with a loader or they would tear it up, they've been instructed and they realize that those little bobcats do work better. So it's really an education with the team that, hey, we're providing newer, nicer equipment to help you. Don't tear it.
So are we gonna have bobcats for them to do that then? Because there's not a bobcat out there.
So they do have one. Doesn't mean that they won't get another one, probably, and that budget's coming up, and they wanted to visit.
Right, so you know the history of the backhoe and all the other issues out there and pulling them up. I'm only about 5-10 years from now, we're gonna have destroyed runners. How do we prevent that other than, which is right?
So consequences to not following orders or strikes.
Okay.
No, I agree, we buy nice things and then it gets destroyed and.
That's what you.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All right, let's vote.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have one other question. 1.7 million bucks. I heard we have 1.5. Where's the other $250,000 coming from?
Reserves.
Fund balance.
The actual reserve.
It's actually reserve account.
That's the 900 something thousand for the side for water and wastewater.
I just, that's one of the obligations we said we do. Where's the money coming from? So I'd ask the question.
Okay, so city secretary. Council has unanimously approved. Repairs to clarifier 1, drying vents at the wastewater treatment plant for an estimated $1.7 million approximately. All right, moving on to executive reports. All right, city mayor report. All right, city secretary, please put 6 minutes on the clock and per chapter 23, section number 12, we can grant 4 more minutes. All right, so city council, we approved the ordinance, chapter 23, city council, article 1, code of ordinances, goes through articles 3, 4, and I think it gets it 4, decorum. As I read this evening when we started the meeting, the members must preserve order and decorum, and a member shall neither by conversation or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings or the peace of the council, nor disturb any member while speaking, or refuse to obey the orders of the council or its presiding officer. The presiding officer will ensure the decorum of the meeting is maintained and is appropriate. There can be no demeaning of any individual or group. Now, what we have to ask ourselves as a body is, are we gonna follow this? Or are we gonna allow disruptions to occur and for demeaning to occur, which happen in the sequence? We have to think, are we gonna follow our own ordinance that we passed? Okay, so take that into consideration. The city secretary can print this out for you if it's easier for you than going to the city website. All right, so that's what I asked you to do. So consider, are we gonna follow our ordinance? Next, one individual cannot speak on behalf of the entire council. We have an update from our law firm with a memo that I printed out. You've all received it by email. Let me say, in this, in the conclusion, officials must refrain from using city resources such as emails, letterhead, the city logo, etc., in context other than conducting official city business. Council members' actions will reflect on the city and may raise questions from the public. Council members should take care that public funds and resources are never expended for campaign or for personal purposes. Personal purposes would violate state law. As such, officials should take care to ensure any communications about a non-city event or action do not use city logos, official social media pages, or email accounts, or other resources. Okay, so be very careful when you're sending out emails. The council as a whole is what decides what's happening. The resolutions pass or fail. Okay, thank you, City Secretary. City Manager?
I have several updates. I will try to speak really fast. So the update on the water. We started implementing a weekly meeting with the engineers to go over multiple issues and concerns within the water system. Not only the wastewater, but water. Right now, we've had to re-switch our focus with less than a month and a half, month than a week to complete the lead and copper deadline that's mandatory by the state of Texas and federal government. We've switched to focusing on the lead and copper and making sure we have that inventory. Currently, the whole department has been instructed, effective today moving forward, that they will have to do more field investigations, which means we do foresee overtime increase. This is a mandatory based on what has been collected and what has been inputted. And honestly, truly not understanding exactly what the state is requiring. As of last week, they have a new form. We are going through and a lot of crunching right now to get everything updated. Just a reminder on the lead and copper, it's not just the city side, it's also the residential side, and it's also reporting both information. Prior to today's meeting on the water side, we've been working with Andy, and Johnny has done a great job running back and forth between water leaks, issues with tanks, storage, and then asking and jumping through hoops to complete some of these what if scenarios. So what we've done currently is we've gone through and we've done different processes with the different valves, turning them on, turning them off to see how the water is moving within the system, hoping to discover maybe a possible leak. We are gonna put this process on hold with focusing on Pierce Paint so that we can complete the lead and copper. But the next step is to understand the status with Pierce Paint, why isn't it billing? On October 15th at 4 p.m., we do have a scheduled workshop to speak with the attorney, sorry, Alexander, the engineers regarding our water system. They have come up with several suggestions and ideas and thought processes in order to address our current concerns and our future needs. He'll have a short presentation so that you guys can see what we've done. We've pretty much come up with an ABC. We're on F now, trying to figure out what's going on. The biggest in projects, of course, will be tying the two sides together to help if any one side is struggling. Additional capacity within our own well system. Looking at the east side of town and the direction we want to go with that. And then anything else we can think of. So they'll have a presentation for that. The wastewater,
15th at 4 p.m.
yes. So I'm trying, yes. So I'm trying to schedule all of our workshops the same day as council meetings. And I understand everyone has a full-time job, but it's the only way I can really ensure that as many of you attend. And I know that's a little, hard, but I'm hoping that some of you can work with your employers, maybe to get a little time off early, or make different arrangements. October 15th, it's our second regular scheduled meeting, and we'll be going over the water. I'd like to say the wastewater is on track because we're moving through the process despite the fact that it's taking us longer to procure and be able to fully fund the repairs to move in that direction. I want to point out that Andy's comment was really, really important. TCQ has to approve everything we do. We can't go in there and rehabilitate our plant without their permission. They took the initiative to make sure we were in compliance and provided them with the engineering plans to show them what we're doing. I feel that that's really important because that's something that could come back and bite us. So they took care of that. We're moving forward with the clarifier and then the drying beds. But that doesn't mean that we're not stopping our day-to-day operations, that they're still doing that as well. On the street department, so the newest update is next week we will have a hot box. The original estimated time was October. They thought they could get us to us in July. Now we're in September. I feel we're gonna be back at the original. One of the big expenses coming out of this year's budget is that hot box. It's 90,000, so hopefully we'll get it before September 30th. The street infrastructure workshop is October 1st at 4 p.m. So I had tasked the Public Works Department with utilizing the new assistant director to fully understand all of our roads and their conditions based off of our street study. Utilizing what was prepared by a third-party engineer group, not Jacob and Martin, another one, and going through and looking at, okay, yeah, I agree, I disagree, this is not a priority, this is a priority. And the reason why I asked for it to be our own Public Works Department is they're the ones out there. They're the ones driving the roads. They know the busy ones. I would never think the side road would be busy, but we all know Sol Ross is busy. We all know Murphy Street is busy. We all know Del Rio Street is busy. But going through and actually looking at that street study and then doing it in-house, this has been seal coded in 2015. This has been updated, rebuilt in 2020. Providing that information. On October 1st, the presentation will be provided by the Public Works Department and having a true conversation with the council in the direction we want to go. Eddie will present his proposed list of streets to seal coat, but I've also asked him to provide that list of possible rebuilds. We know that the money will be the hardest part, but I think we do still need to have the conversation, especially as October we start going into our budget process. I mean, it's some changes. So looking forward to that conversation on October 1st. So the update on the compensation plan and the actions being taken. This plan has, this plan has 11 phases. We've completed 3 altogether. There was several setbacks with not being able to get the pure data to be able to have those comparisons. As of 9 a.m. this morning, I had a wonderful conversation with Evergreen, and we worked through 3 of the tasks, which was just a lot of information. This is what was said, this is what we found, comparing it to where we're at. Some of the feedback that was presented, and it's understandable. We are a small community, and having so many specialized positions isn't beneficial. So when we look at growing our departments and we look at growing the city as a whole, having 15 specialized positions may not do exactly what it needs to be done. So there was a lot of conversation on the compromising what we both thought would work so that they can provide us the job description. A lot of changes in the titles of some of the positions to co-align with everything else within our community. They're finishing up the comparison on the salaries to see where we're at compared to everybody else. And then of course, they'll go into the next step was just the develop the strategic position recommendations. So we are slightly behind, but that was because of the pure input. In order for this to be a really well-grounded report, they had to have a number of responses, because you can't compare one person to one person. So I'm glad that they were able to get some more information. The update on the comprehensive plan. I have scheduled a workshop for November 5th. And I have the privilege of meeting someone who does this for a living. They actually design comprehensive plans and strategic plans for cities all over the state of Texas, and I believe other states as well. So Ms. Favre, AJ Favre, is willing to do a presentation. She'll come in and actually walk through kind of the ideas of a comprehensive plan, provide some more structure, allow it to be very informal, open questions, and kind of go through the differences and how they both complement each other. The importance of them, things that we've already talked about. I felt that this was kind of important, especially as we go this direction. To have everyone on the same page, everyone kind of understand this plan. She does do this for a living. She's done several presentations that I liked what she's presented, so I wanted to bring that to the city so that you had the opportunity to ask the questions you need to ask. Councilmember Stevens. I do, I'm sorry. And the reason why I want, she's available. And so in January, I have a financial team coming in to explain how to go out for bonds. I don't have anything scheduled for December. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year kind of deal. But I kind of wanted this all tied out and formulated so that you guys kind of had we're gonna go over streets, we're gonna go over water, we've already taken care of the employee side, we're gonna go over the comprehensive plan, the financial ways to move forward with what we need. And have it all structured so that as you guys are making decisions on the budget and as we're looking at the future, you have a little bit of that education background. I know it's election day. I hope everyone has voted before.
Any questions? We have a few minutes remaining. Okay. All right. So with that, we're gonna move on to council member comments. Councilmember Stowe.
Looks like you might get out of here a little earlier. That's all I got.
Yay. Councilmember Martinez. Okay, Councilmember Nance. Councilmember Stevens. Okay. I just have one comment. I want everyone in the public to know that this council has high integrity. That every member on this council has integrity. There may have been an unfounded acquisition that we are violating by having conversations out of council, that is not correct. Every member on this council has the utmost in integrity, and I want everybody to rest assured that we do. All right, with that, we're moving into item number 13, executive session. Pursuant to chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, the city council reserves the right to convene into executive session from time to time as deemed necessary during this meeting for any posted agenda item or to receive advice from the attorney as permitted by law. Tonight, the council will recess into executive session for personnel matters 551.074 Texas Government Code to discuss and deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee utility manager. May I have a motion to move into executive session?
Session discussed.
May I have a second? Okay, so I have a motion and a second to recess into executive session. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, we will proceed to a vote. If you are in favor of this motion, please raise your right hand. All right, city secretary, all council members voted in favor of moving into executive session. We will move into executive session at 7:27 p.m. Okay, may I have a motion, please, to reconvene into open session? I need a second. Any discussion? Let's vote. City Secretary, all council members voting unanimously to move back into open session. The time is 7:45 p.m. Okay, this brings us to item number 14, action after executive session. May I please get a motion?
They are proposed that the city council authorize city manager to provide a stipend to Johnny Marquez. 6 months, while he fills the role of acting director. City council asked the city manager, to thank Johnny Marquez.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yes, 1,000. Yes, I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, let's vote to authorize the city manager to give Donnie Marquez, acting utility director, a stipend of $1,250 per month for up to 6 months, and to thank him for his service. All right, city secretary, we have 4 council members who have voted in favor of this and 1 council member who has voted in favor. All right, with that, the motion passes. And 7:47, let's adjourn. Good job, council. This is the first time in a while we've gotten out. And 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we did it.
Oh my God.